Welcome back to the channel, and I am looking at something brand new to me that I don't have a lot of experience with, but I'm sure there are a lot of fans that watch this channel that are excited about this. So this is the Thomas and Friends Wooden Railway, and this of course is Thomas, number one. And Fisher Price, can't have a video without my kitty cat deciding to become involved. Fisher Price started, okay, you figure out where you're going to be, kitty cat, then we'll, okay, is that it? Is that the spot? Okay. So Fisher Price started making Thomas toys. It's my understanding, started making Thomas toys back in the 90s. And that's a license they got back, I guess, around 2010 to make Thomas Wooden Railway toys. See, this particular Thomas, this track is Brio track, not Fisher Price track, but Thomas will run on that. We'll take a look at that a little bit in a moment. And if you want an electric Thomas toy, you need to seek out a company called Bachmann, who's well known for making, at least here in the US anyway, it might be different in Europe or other countries, but Bachmann makes a lot of G-scale and HO locomotives here in the United States, and they make G-scale Thomas and HO Thomas, and I believe an N-scale Thomas, if I'm not mistaken. So that's something. But if you're a younger person or somebody that just likes wooden railways, there is an option for that, and it is through Fisher Price. Okay, let's open this up and take a look. As you can see, this cost me $16.99. If you shop around, you can probably find it for a bit less. I bought this one at Hobby Express, just outside Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. And I like supporting my local hobby store when it makes sense, when I can. And I was there and I said, you know what, the heck with it. I've gotten some requests for Thomas. Let's do Thomas. Interestingly, real quick before we open this up, Fisher Price has a company store in New York State. It's not far from Buffalo, which is only about 3 hours from where I live. So if you guys like the Thomas videos, I may go to the Fisher Price company store, and they got a whole big Thomas thing there apparently, and of course they carry all the different Thomas products. So maybe I'll make a trip up there and stock up and show you guys what the store looks like. But let's go ahead and open this up. Just slides right open. Come on. It's almost like a matchbox. Not that anybody uses matches anymore much. Doesn't come all the way off, so you can put Thomas back in when you're done playing with him, which is clever. I already cut this with a pair of scissors. Thomas is secured down with that, like a string. And here he is. First time I've had him out of the box. Let's take a look here. There we go. There we go. So pretty detailed, I feel like. There's Thomas's face, of course, and the number one. There's that, and you can see a coal load in the back there, and the couplers, much like Brio products, which was kind of the original wooden train, if I'm not mistaken, but couplers are magnetic, so you should work with your Brio products or your Melissa and Doug products or any other manufacturers. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Thomas. And I made some notes before the video because I am not an expert on Thomas. I was born in 1980, and Thomas, I don't feel like got popular in the United States until kind of more my sister's age group. So if you grew up in like the mid to late 80s, if that's when you were born, you definitely know who Thomas was. I'm a little too old to. Thomas actually started like in 1946 in a series of books. So Thomas is actually just a little bit older than both of my parents. But Shining Time Station, which is the show that Thomas was on, at least here in the United States, that didn't really premiere till later, and I was kind of outside the age group. Oh, I didn't notice that before. What does that say? I was kind of outside the age group. Oh, Thomas, and it's got a serial number and stuff. I was kind of outside the age group for that, and my sister wasn't especially into trains as a little girl, so, but she would watch her programs, and sometimes Shining Time Station would come on afterwards, and by that point, partially because my parents were very liberal with what I could watch on TV, I did know who Mr. Conductor was, not from Shining Time Station. I knew who George Carlin was because I had watched, I'm sure, at least one or two of his stand-up specials on HBO by that point. At that point, I'm probably like, I don't know, 12, something like that. So maybe not even quite that old. And doing a little bit of homework for this video, I found out that Thomas is in fact based off of a real locomotive, and most of Thomas's friends are also based on real locomotives. Not anything I would see really here in the United States, but off of English locomotives. And specifically, Thomas, as he evolved, came to be modeled after an LB and SCR E2 class locomotive. That is a lot of letters and words, and that is the London, Brighton, and South Coast Railway. That's what all that stands for. And an E2 class locomotive is just what the designers decided to name this one. You'll remember in the last video we did this Southern Pacific Daylight 4449, and everybody knows it as a Daylight or just as its number is 4449, but it's a GS4 class locomotive. So I mean they all kind of get their own numbers and stuff. So Thomas is also an 060 tank engine. So let's talk about what 060 means. So on steam engines, I'm looking for another example here, but let's just start with Thomas. Steam engines can have a lot of wheels sometimes, and sometimes they just have a few. But sometimes you'll see like 2 small wheels in the front, then you'll see like 6 big wheels, and then maybe a couple more wheels. The 0 is for the front wheels. He doesn't have any pilot wheels, is what they're called, those little small wheels. And then that middle set of wheels, the driving wheels, the ones that make all the power so he can pull a train, that's what that middle number is. And he has 6. You see 3 here, but there's also 3 on the other side, so that's how you get 6. So there's the 060, and then the back, he doesn't have any back wheels, so that makes him an 060, specifically an 060T, which T stands for tank, which means he doesn't, his tender is included. He doesn't have he holds his own water, and he doesn't need a tender. Now, if we look at one of the more popular videos I've done is the Speedy Bullet Train. Let's compare that for just a second. So this isn't a normal prototypical example, but so you got 2 front wheels. So this would be like a 440. So we got 4 front wheels. We got 4 drive wheels, and the tender doesn't count, so there's no wheels after that. So it's just a 440. So you don't count the tender with that. The very famous Southern Pacific Daylight that we recently took a look at, that here it's represented as an 040, and it's a representation, it's a toy, it's not going to be an exact replica, but in real life I believe it is a 484, if I'm not mistaken. It's a Northern. So the real one, if you ever go see it, has 2 little wheels up here, or then it has the 4 big wheels, or well 8, so 4, 8, and then 2 small ones back over the cab. So if you want to know what a more of a prototypical real life tank engine is, here we go. Let me zoom out of that a little bit for you. There you go. Okay, so this is modeled for the real life Santa Fe Railroad. And this is an 060. There's no wheels in the front. You have 6 drive wheels, 3 on each side, right? And no wheels on the back. And this is an 060T because he has a tank. He doesn't need a tender. He can do his things. Now, what would you see something like this doing? Well, kind of the same work Thomas does. Short runs. You don't see Thomas don't usually see Thomas, is my understanding, on really long journeys, but you'll see something like this on short runs. You'll see something like this switching around all the other cars in a train yard to make a long train for a big steam engine like Gordon or diesel. Or sometimes companies that manufacture things like that make steel, for example, or pipes, or any number of things really. Sometimes they need a locomotive to move all those big heavy things around, and they would pick up a smaller locomotive like this to make that work. So there's a real life example of an 060, but a more Americanized one, not quite like Thomas, but these did exist in real life. So Thomas is back, and let's get some Brio track. Now Fisher-Price makes track specifically for Thomas, or for their Thomas and Friends line. But as you can see, if you have a collection of Brio, Thomas works just fine on this, and he appears to roll very nicely. Let's put some more track together here. And I got a kitty cat that really wants to play trains right now, don't you, buddy? Yeah, you're trying to play trains with me right now. All right, there we go. Okay, so now we got a little stretch of track. Let's see how Thomas does on this. Oh yeah, he glides pretty nicely. I have no complaints. You've heard me mention in other videos that some of the newest Brio stuff, there's some wheel wobble and stuff that just isn't there with the old stuff. And there's a little bit here. I mean, you're gonna have a little bit on almost any, but these are plastic. They're a hard plastic. And they got little spokes and stuff, just like Thomas in the show. This is all wooden and painted on, which is nice. You don't have to worry about decals coming off or anything, but you probably could scratch it if you. And then this front part here is plastic, and the little coal load back here is plastic. But yeah, so there you go. I kind of expected the whole thing to be plastic, and it's not, which is really nice. So if we put this side by side with you zoom out a little bit here. There we go. So this is kind of the quintessential Brio locomotive for many years. Was this okay, kitty cat, stop trying to help me. Was this Brio locomotive here. And you can see Thomas is a good bit bigger, but he fits on the tracks just fine. He could pull a load of Brio cars if he wanted to. You know, if you want to mix and match stuff. Let me grab some of those. Let's get rid of that. We still got our stuff out from the last video I did. So that's a Brio Santa Fe passenger car, and got a couple flat cars, and it's all lines up very nice with Thomas's couplers. It's really nice that these manufacturers have made things in a way that they're compatible, because you don't want to have to buy multiple types of train sets, right? I mean, that makes it really nice. I really think it's smart, and it's really appreciated that they did that. Because if you're like me as a little kid and you had maybe you had a Brio set you really wanted, and then you probably would want a Thomas thing, and then you'd want something else, and on and on it goes. So let's take a look at him next to the Speedy Bullet here. And this was a very big Brio locomotive. I commented on that many times. You see, it's as long as a couple cars. and understandably, Thomas isn't going to be as big as that. It's a little taller though. And, you know, as far as I can tell, and I don't watch Thomas every day, of course, but his color is perfectly right. The detailing, I mean, his number obviously is right, but the detailing, the red trim and stripes and stuff, it all seems very correct. It looks like Fisher-Price did a very good job making this accurate, which is really important. I would have, as a kid, that would have really, really bothered me if it wasn't. So I'm glad they did that. Okay. And as we saw a second ago, but let me do it again. So Thomas is a locomotive that also has a coupler up front, in part because when he's working in the yard, he has to move stuff around and he has to go forward and backwards a lot more than maybe a bigger locomotive. So you can hook him up with other locomotives. If you want to get rid of the tender, see, he can hook right up. You can double head train. You want to get this old Brio from when I was a little kid. He hooks right up. And you know, when you're doing model railroading like HO, for example, it's very important that the couplers be the same height for when there's any change in elevation, but that's not so important on a railway like this. And they line up well enough and it's magnetic, so you shouldn't really have too many problems. You should be fine. So you can double head your train and Thomas can help pull your Brio train, or the Brio engine can help pull your Thomas train, whatever the case may be. This particular locomotive doesn't have a front coupler, so I can't put it in the back, but it just depends. And here's a shot I'm sure a lot of railroad fans never thought they'd see. There's Thomas double heading with 4449. Pretty cool, right? So just to kind of summarize, to wrap up, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, at $16, and I'm sure you can find it a little bit cheaper at $16. You know, this is really pretty well detailed in my opinion. It has good magnets. They're not really weak magnets like I've complained about on some of the more modern Brio stuff. It seems to have pretty good magnets. It's wooden. I was pleasantly surprised there. I honestly thought it was going to be plastic. The wheels seem very straight. There's not a lot of wobble or anything. And I think, you know, if you got a Thomas fan, this is a must, obviously. But even if you got somebody who's maybe not quite a Thomas fan and just a train fan, I think this would be a big hit. Assuming they're cool with the anthropomorphized locomotive. I think it just depends on the little kid in your life. I would not have been as into Thomas as I would have been into something like this, but that's just me, and I was certainly not the typical kid. I wanted my trains to look like the real thing. But I am sure I am the exception on that. So there's Thomas and my kitty cat. What do you think, buddy? You making friends with Thomas? Yeah? You gonna kick him off the track when I'm not looking? Yeah? I feel like that could happen. Oh, no. You're just looking? Okay. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will be posting some videos with Thomas's friends very soon.